Alright, so testing sound. Looks like sound is actually working. Testing.
No, not recorded.
Draw a
And then
thing.
listen to the recording.
That is what I'm doing.
Oh.
Well, as you can see, this is something a little new and hopefully fun. This is going to be designing a face-up, basically. The editing is extremely rough. Please let me apologize going forward. There'll be parts where my little 2D avatar is frowning when I'm not frowning. I'm just looking down because that's how the webcam reads it. And there's going to be parts where it's sped up, and it's just going to be a hash. But we're learning. We'll do better in the future. I wanted to finally put something out there for you, and this sounded fun and was fun, actually. So I hope you enjoy.
Okay. Hello. We're trying something a little bit new today, and I figured I would try to start showing you more of my doll projects, and that included things that I do on the iPad in this case, or on my computer. And of course that meant I needed a 2D avatar and, needed to make it from scratch by myself. That's definitely a normal thing to do, right? Well, anyway, it's a thing. And so I am super excited about a new doll, of course. It is a Fairyland Minifee or Minifee, however you prefer to say it. Rena? I've been saying Rena in my head. Anyway, she is crazy adorable, and I am super excited. Oh goodness, you can see all of my stuff here. Well, anyway, we're going to add a few photos. So my girl is going to be tan, and I would like to figure out her face up and like what I plan to do with that and all that good stuff. Really? Stop it. Okay, so as you can see, it's clearly been a while since I've used Procreate, so what I like to do is take whatever the company has offered as far as pictures go, and in this case it was surprisingly hard to find because I believe that Fairyland is not making her anymore. So I got this super blurry picture off of Denver Dolls, the actual Denver Doll Emporium, the actual company that I purchased her from, and they also had this other photo of her actually in tan that's also a lot clearer, but unfortunately is also, as you can see, one with a face up. And since I want to create my own face up, I'm not sure that one's going to work for my purposes. So right now I am just overlaying them, which is always fun. Interesting. So the reason these are different in what looks like proportion is actually probably the focal length of the camera that took them, which is just wild. It's kind of cool. I kind of lined up the eyes, but neat. Anyway, that does make my life a little harder. So I'm wondering if sometimes I'll sort of paint over the existing picture, and sometimes I'll just go full animation mode and basically trace, and then go from there. And I think this time around I'm just gonna trace it because this picture is so blurry, and the other one was so different because of the focal length. So, good lord, this is a big old file. Oh no, okay. Yeah. So this will hopefully give me a base to plan my actual face up on.
So we are back to voiceover while I start getting really into this. I am at the moment just tracing everything and just to get a sort of baseline of the face shapes. And yeah, I really like using the iPad for this. I normally don't use Apple products ever, but having a tablet to actually be drawing on has really increased my productivity. As you can see there, I gave up on making my eyes symmetrical, so I just cheated and duplicated and flipped one. Now I'm going in and tracing out the nose. I was really struggling to get the tracing on the mouth right because that under photo is so blurry. It's just really, really hard to see where the hard edges are. The lips on this doll in particular are probably one of my absolute favorite features. So I did flip over to the slightly more clear picture to try and see if I could use that as a sort of visual reference. And eventually I decided to use my duplication trick and flip it and then go with whichever side I felt was closer to how I see the sculpt. So this was the first side. I tried it out and then I undid it just to double check and see if I liked the other side better. I ended up liking the first side better, so that was the one that I went with. And then once I do this, I just merge my layers and it all becomes one layer for my inking again. I lowered the top lip just a tiny bit, added in the eye creases because I do believe those are part of the model. They're, 3D effects. And I was pretty happy with my line art for the most part, just a few little tweaks and fixes here and there to make things look a little bit more symmetrical and nice. Then I started using the dropper tool to pull colors. I'm setting my inking, my line art to be my reference layer, and I just drop the color in. Then I start adding the whites for the eyes. I do believe I eventually make the whites on the eyes a different layer, if I haven't already. Oh yeah, they're their own layer. I like keeping the eyes their own layer. It just makes it a little bit easier, and I actually do use quite a few layers in the eyes. I had been planning to do a sort of cell shading on this and then immediately started doing something else instead. Not 100% intentional on my part. The funny part is I forgot to go back and soften up the eyeshadows so those remained cell shaded while everything else was not. Whoops. Oh well. Now I'm using an airbrush tool to kind of give the eyes a little bit more depth, and doing eyes for these is really, really fun, and it makes, to me, the giving it a face up afterwards a little bit easier to sort of visualize what it'll eventually look like. I knew with this doll I want her to have mint green hair, and so I decided to go with sort of lilac-y purple eyes. I thought that might be cute together. All of this is just sort of thinking and planning and maybe not even set in stone necessarily. I am going in now and pulling some softer colors, lighter colors to sort of add to the depth a little bit. Attempt to anyway. Gratuitous abuse of the blur tools and brushes with blur features here. I give the top of the eye a little bit more shading. I really wanted the eyes to look pale, but still have a little bit of depth, which is always kind of fun and tricky. I tend to find making eyes with bold colors a little bit easier. But then I started going in and really going ham on the details, which, yeah, this is when I sort of realized that, oh, I'm not doing cell shading at all, not even a little bit. Then I added the eye shines. I do drawing and art in a very similar way as to my sewing, which is to say I just try a lot of different things until I find something I'm happy with. I think this video kind of shows that. So once I had everything of the eyes done to my own satisfaction, I put those in their own little group and I started yoinking darker colors in the shadows. Here I'm looking at my base picture trying to figure out where the heck I need to be putting shadows, which the base picture is very blurry and it was really hard to, like, it's so well lit that it was really hard to tell. So yeah, I just kind of decided to use the smaller, clearer picture as my shadow reference. And whoops, excuse me. Sorry about that. Oh yes, you can see my 2D avatar going a little... Am I dating myself by calling her an avatar? I think I might be. Well, anyway, my 2D model going a little bit crazy whenever I look down, and like now her mouth is just hanging open, I guess. That's cool. So we're gonna fix that later. But for now, we're just drawing away. I know a lot of the more famous YouTube artists like have interesting things to talk about and drama and such. I don't. I'll be honest, I live a pretty quiet life, you guys. Oh, here we go. Here's the thing I can talk about. So when doing this kind of shading, I do notice that sometimes things get really muddy, and I don't really care for that. Since I am the kind of person that will always overwork things to the point of muddiness, I've sort of counteracted that by using my shadows on their own layer, and then I'll go in, and when I notice things start looking a little muddy, I'll actually just erase. And so instead of just adding color all the time, I'm also taking the darkness away so that I can more easily control where the shadows end up being, and I can sort of reduce the muddiness that sort of comes from using the blur tool quite so gratuitously as I am here. And then again, I use a totally different layer to start adding my highlights. This can get a little bit confusing when you have highlights that overlap shadows, and that will affect the color, so you do have to be a little bit careful about that, but I do really find that this is kind of a nice way to get a more soft shadowed coloring without worrying as much about the muddiness that can come from that. I continued to work with my colors and tried to create a 3D sort of effect to give myself a base to start on. I ended up doing just a lot of this for quite a while because it's a little bit like digital painting, I guess. I don't know. It just takes tweaking and a lot of staring. I did end up deepening the shadows near the eyes a little bit, and just kind of tried to get it to look like a blank version of the picture in the corner. And this here is where I was telling you about. It gets a little confusing sometimes if you have highlights over shadows. My shadows aren't very dark because there is a thin layer of semi-transparent highlight, so I started going in and just kind of trying to make the lips a little bit more cohesive. I finally got mad at it and got rid of the highlight layer for the moment. And then I was like, wow, that looks horrible. And just kept going, apparently. But this is definitely where having the erase option can really help. You can go in and just erase all of the highest plateaus, and it pretty much works. It's fine. This is one of those things that you could do until the end of time and it would never be perfect, so I finally decided it was good enough to be going. Oh no, I didn't. I decided I needed to fix the... Oh, what are these called? I know what they're called. I have a friend that hates them. A little dip above your lip. It has a fun name. Anyway, she's got a fairly prominent one, so I went in and tried to add those little details. Now I finally decided to have some fun with the actual Faceup design. I knew I wanted to accent her lips, so I picked a pretty dark color to start off with some sharp lip lines. Since this is all planning, everything can be considered temporary. The color and all that stuff is just sort of a suggestion to give me something to look at and think about. I am attempting to keep it dark but also give it some depth and highlights and shadows. I realized I was exceeding the lip line, so I went in and cleaned that up a little bit. And then I started trying to decide how I wanted to add some shine. I ended up doing something kind of similar to the eyes, where I do a bunch of little hash marks, and then I used a soft brush to erase them and sort of mold them where I wanted them to go. I really liked how that was looking. And then I wanted it to be even more shiny though, so I actually added another shine. And then it was time to start deciding on blush. Blush can be really tricky for me, sometimes because I do usually want to use the multiply tool because I feel like it more accurately represents when you put pastels on the Faceup and then you spray MSC, Mr. Super Clear on it. I feel like the Mr. Super Clear kind of has the multiply effect on the colors that you use. I couldn't really get the color to look the way I wanted it to though, so I ended up just leaving it as a normal layer and then making it semi-transparent. So that's going to be super fun and exciting to see if I can replicate on the actual Faceup. But we're designing right now, we're not thinking about that. Then, like I said, I did want to make mint hair, so I am using a minty color for her eyebrows. And I wasn't, I didn't hate this shape, but I wasn't loving the shape either. So I started kind of like selecting them and moving them around, and this is really why I like doing mock-ups, because it gives me the chance to visualize a choice before I really commit to it, because it's so much easier to select something and, move it in a program than it is to erase it once you're already halfway done on the doll. And I was trying to be loose and interesting with my eyebrows, so there were a few false starts, and then I ended up with this shape, which I didn't completely hate, so I started messing around with that. And then I started going in and actually making it look like an eyebrow instead of just a solid block of color. I realized I hadn't put them both on the same layer, so I fixed that. And lots of tiny little hairs, using the soft erase to sort of tame them down again. Then I went over them with a lighter mint color, and I was liking how this was looking, so just adding a little bit of shadows here and there, trying to give things as much depth as possible. I checked back with my old eyebrows because I left them on their own layer and I still didn't like them as much, so I went with the new ones. Then it was eyeshadow time. Sort of tried to go a little bit darker on the eyeshadow again. I'm thinking maybe she might end up being like a pastel goth kind of girl. I don't know, I'm not 100% sure. Now I'm adding highlights to the Faceup, and I didn't quite like the color I was using, so I went with a brighter color and blurred it. And when it started getting too wild, I erased it. I like putting a pop of color in the inner eye like that. I think it looks really nice. I do it on my own makeup sometimes, and I do it on the dolls. And then I added the sort of red inside eye color, and when I started doing the the eyeliner, I realized, oh, wait, it's gonna blend in with the line art. So then I decided, because I had veered in another direction with my shading and I went with such a soft shading style, that I would try to incorporate my line art a little bit better by coloring it. I did this by creating a clipping mask above my line art and then just coloring over it with whatever color I felt like it needed to be. And I end up going back and forth on some of these colors quite a bit, but it definitely gives it a slightly more realistic look, and I thought that looked really good with this style. You can see I'm dropping my colors because I don't want to add too many new colors into everything. I did end up having to darken some of the line art a little bit more though, so it would stand out and wouldn't be quite so flat looking. But I think that was a good choice. I think it ended up looking really nice. And then now I can add my eyelashes and my eyeshadow over top, and I feel like it pops like it would on the actual doll. So yeah. Lord knows, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to replicate eyelashes well. It's historically not something I've been able to do, but you know, I think that she is a good sculpt to try and learn that on with her big eyes, so. You may have also noticed that my little avatar has disappeared. I realized that it wasn't picking up my facial expressions at all, so I turned it off. Don't worry though, she'll be coming back. I'm gonna change up how I edit and format my videos, and I think that will fix that problem. She'll actually be following my voiceover voice, which makes much more sense than having her just jabber away while I have everything sped up. So anyway, I was not super happy with how the first version of the lashes turned out, so I decided to try again, and I think I like having them kind of pointing in this direction a little more. Thinking I might have to put real lashes on the doll at some point, because I'm not sure I would be able to get those top lashes to look as nice and dynamic, you know, as they would be. I'm really liking how she's coming out. I ended up deciding to try and maybe go a different color with her lips, or possibly, I think I ended up settling on just like black lips. Black lips, but maybe with a little bit of dimension, some lines thrown in there, and some gloss to make things shadowy. Shadowy? No, shiny. Yes. You can kind of see I'm trying just ideas, trying to figure out what I'm doing. Using multiply and just different ways to kind of do that. I ended up trying a few things that all sort of ended up being exactly the same, so I just left it. Right now it's kind of on the blue side. So to change the color, I went in and tanked the saturation so that it's now black, or kind of a dark gray. And then I decided, why not add some hair? I just sort of sketched in an idea. Threw down the color. Procreate has these fun brushes in materials that end up looking like hair, kind of. So I used a lot of that, like I heavily abused those to try and get my sort of mint green hair look. Now obviously this is gonna look photoshopped or procreated, you know, digital, but that's okay. I just like to use this as a way to get an idea of something before going ahead with it. And in the end, I think I like this a lot. It could be subject to change. The doll I ordered is on layaway, so I've got a little bit of time to think about it and get that paid off and I'd love to pay her off early, of course, but we'll see. Until then, I'm gonna keep thinking on ways to style her, and I don't know if I'll change things or not. I'm just not sure. I'm also using the erase tool to kind of reshape this hair, and yeah, I eventually decided that I really didn't like the shape and busted out the liquefy tool, which is a really fun tool. Oh, that's right. And then I decided, what am I doing? She has none, like, she barely has eyeshadow. So I decided to see what a more gothy or, like, darker eyeshadow would look like. And I had a really hard time with it because I forgot that this layer is not at 100%, so it was a lot lighter than I was expecting. But in the end, I came up with something I liked anyway. I went in and used snow, but made it small. And I decided that looked a little bit like maybe glitter or a silver color. And I thought that was super fun for just like a little pop of interest around the eyes. I also realized that I completely forgot eyeliner, so I made a separate layer for eyeliner. I decided to do something a little fun with the bottom liner and have it come to a separate point than the top liner. I thought maybe of filling that in with something light, but I wasn't liking how it was looking from afar. So I tried something a little softer, and I just wasn't digging it. I don't know. So I took that out. I flipped my eyeliner, took forever to line it up, added my eyelashes back in, realized that the hair needed some work. So when I was using this distortion, or this liquefy tool, I did not realize distortion and momentum was on max, so you can kind of see what it's doing. It's sort of making the hair look all ripply, and I wasn't liking that, so I changed it and I moved them down to nothing, and it made it a lot easier to just sort of nudge stuff with a big brush in the directions that I wanted it to go. And that's it. So ultimately, I really like how she is looking. I think this might be the direction I want to go for her. Super pumped. I hope you enjoyed this new kind of video. Really enjoyed making it, and I think it'll be easier to make more content if I can do a little bit more stuff digitally. And of course, it's nice to draw and to paint like this. I guess it's kind of like painting. Anyway, if you like this, please like and subscribe. If you also like my sewing videos, go check those out. And I do hope you have a great day. Bye bye.